In today's session, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarat Chakravarthi, mother of four teenagers, IT engineer turned youth development entrepreneur, and someone I've known and worked alongside for 10 years. In 2017, she travelled from the US to the UK to attend my 5-day public speaking course, which I still find both flattering and slightly suspicious. Sarat has spent nearly a decade testing what actually works, building human skills in young people, theorising, not researching from a distance, but sitting with teenagers and watching what happens. Over 600 young people later, what she's discovered will make you rethink everything you believe you know about communication skills and how it's built. Sarah, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Vince. It is so good to see you. And thank you for bringing me on your podcast, genuinely. I want to tell your audience why I chose to travel from the US to the UK to learn from you specifically, because I think it explains everything about why I ended up working with you and the youth the way I do. I had access to some of the best communication and training institutes in the US, but when I looked at what most of them were teaching, I kept seeing the same pattern: a checklist, how to stand, how to dress, which words to use, how to structure your presentation. Follow this formula, and you will sound incredible. Now, the problem is everybody who follows that formula ends up, I think, sounds like everybody else, polished and safe, and completely or, mostly disconnected from who they actually are. What I found in you and the College of Public Speaking was something completely different. You work with people from every walk of life, every confidence level, every background, every personality. And your entire philosophy is not just about making someone sound like a great communicator. It is about helping them understand their own voice and connect from that place. That changed how I see everything, because when I went back to work with youth, I realized that is exactly what they need to do. Not a script, not a formula, the confidence to show up as themselves and connect from there. So, in a way, Vince, you are partly responsible for all of this.
Okay, the good part, I hope. So thank you very much. That's very nice to hear. Okay, so let's. We know that you live in the United States now, but where were you born, and what was life like as a teenager for you?
I was born in India, and I think I had the best friendships growing up. It was actually an incredible teenage life, and it was because of the environment I grew up in, whether it was in school or home. I relied heavily on my friends, and I had great mentorship from, especially from my father and my friends too. That is what built my confidence, especially in human skills, which is relationship building, socializing, understanding people, most importantly, public speaking, debating, and leading. I have had several opportunities to practice there, felt safe. And when I moved to the US, those are the skills that actually made me successful in a completely different country, different culture, different people that I faced at that time. So human skills, public speaking, debating, leadership, just being able to make friends easily. Those were the skills that made me successful in the US and that still make me successful in what I'm doing for the youth today.
Okay, so it sounds like all of those things that you did and learnt in your home country, you've been working on those things and you're doing that full time now.
Yes.
All right, very good, very good. Okay, so take me back to a moment when you were sitting with a group of teenagers and something happened that completely changed how you think about human skills. Can you remember what was that moment?
Yes, this was one of the early years of my volunteering when I was just helping a group of middle and high schoolers to practice presentation skills. That's basic. Um, but what really I struggled with was these kids were really smart, very good in academics. So I gave them a script and I showed them some videos of actually Churchill's speech and Obama. And I said, why don't you just present these three sentences? And I gave them exactly what to say. And they struggled with it. And it then I thought, okay, let me just let them speak whatever they want to. And one of this particular kids was really struggling. He would just freeze every time. So I was like, okay, just talk about anything you love. I don't care, you know? And he surprised the whole room. And he talked about a project he was working on, which is electric cars. And the amount of knowledge and the research that he had when he shared with his friends, everybody was like, wow, he's amazing. And they were curious. And that was the moment it struck me that how kids learn human skills is very different. These skills are actually learned socially through fun, connectivity, and relatability. So, human skills need an environment where children can have fun, connect with each other, and find each other relatable.
Okay, well, that rings true. I'm working with a young man. He's 14 in Egypt at the moment, and as his mother sort of made a booking, and she said he's a teenager. He doesn't talk much. He's very kind of focused. He's very concise when he speaks, but he is really, really interested in mathematics. So in our session today, we just spoke about mathematics and vocabulary, and I asked him to, just explain some of the things that he really enjoys about mathematics. Then we talked about a little bit more specific. I'm not a maths teacher, by the way, but I'm
Right.
familiar with mathematics, running a business, and he was outstanding. He just loves talking about mathematics. He's still got a few things to work on with the vocabulary, and in English, by the way. Yeah, so English is
Yes,
not his
sure.
first language, but he's tremendous, absolutely phenomenal. And you see him smile and really just kind of lean in to the question. Yeah, he just gets a little bit stuck around the vocabulary at the moment, but once he's cracked that, he's going to be amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So you say the way we teach human skills isn't just ineffective, but it's fundamentally broken. That's a really strong word for a room full of trainers. So what do you mean specifically?
See, Vince, if what we have been doing was working great, then we wouldn't have millions of youth, especially teenagers, worried, distracted, unconfident about future. We have a generation of young people who are actually smart in academics and still fall apart the moment they have to lead a room or handle conflict or even make friends. So
Right.
we as trainers are not hanging out with youth in school hallways, gaming worlds, or social media, which is where a lot of socializing or human skill development is happening. And that's why I say that if we bring kids into like a classroom and we tell them, do this, do that, this is how you stand, this is how you present, is not going to move the needle. That's why I feel that the way we are doing has to fundamentally change in order to see people, especially youth, develop strong human skills.
What do you think about young people these days and the iPhone and smartphones? And so, for example, this young man I had mentioned earlier, I get the impression that I think he's an only child, and I think that he spends a lot of time online in the evening talking or communicating through friends, but not a great deal of face to face. But he does a lot of apps and gaming. that
True.
kind of thing?
I think it's okay because they need to socialize. And if they don't have an environment where they can go out and physically or face to face build those friendships, then you got to give them something. But what we need to realize is that whatever they're doing online, if that is calibrated or structured in a way that they're actually developing skills and those are verified, then it will encourage them to actually use the digital media in a right way and feel confident in themselves and also learn their boundaries or the crazy stuff that happens online. So it's okay to be on their phones because they have to talk to their friends. Teenage years especially is all about hanging out with their friends. So I feel it's okay, and I feel that we need to recognize that, but also kind of simulate that kind of environment um, in schools and in communities, events, and where they live for them to do well.
Okay. So you discovered after years of testing that peer-to-peer delivery outperforms adult-led formats with the youth. So as communication trainers, that's slightly uncomfortable. What would you say to someone in this audience who feels challenged by that finding?
I wanted to let you know that I was a part of that audience and I did find it challenging. The most important thing I learned from teenagers is that they don't need us to teach them how to speak, lead, or connect in a certain way, or this is the best way, follow these people and copy their style and things like that. What they need, especially teenagers, is to for us to build them a room, an environment safe for them to experiment and develop that sense of agency, and fail and pivot and not get judged and constantly told, okay, don't do this, do that. This is where this is also a room where they're talking to other people who are like them, not experts like us. Then it's easier for them to learn from each other and not get worried about, proving them their skills to you as a trainer or their parents who put them in that training class. And that's, I think, is important for us to understand that it is easier if you bring more peers into that same room and have them communicate, or at least those teenagers have to have some amount of that time that's happening organically and naturally before we jump in. And we need to jump in more like mentors. We're there for you if you need us, or more like, we got you. In case they have questions and doubts, as opposed to teaching them like a normal subject or science or math, like how we've been doing that in schools. And I think it's hard for us as trainers too. It's hard for us to build that room to make that happen instead of just standing in front of the class and say, okay, I want you to move your eyes, from 180 degrees to make sure that you're making eye contact. It's easy to say, but it's not effective. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, I don't have a great deal of experience working with young teenagers. I think you've got way beyond me on that one. I've worked with some later teenagers who are a little bit more developed and a little bit more confident.
Right.
What do you think when you sit with a teenager who's anxious, disengaged, or distracted? What's actually going on beneath the surface that most adults miss?
I think you would be surprised to know that they're not necessarily disengaged. They just have a fragile sense of self worth. So they are protecting themselves from the very specific pain of trying in public and failing in front of people whose opinion of them actually matters. So they're just afraid. And it's not like they don't want to learn, they don't want to succeed, they don't want to try. They're just scared. And that's what we miss. We think, oh, do one more time and you'll get it. But at the end of the day, they see you as a subject matter expertise or someone that they have to impress. And if they fail to do that, they don't develop that confidence. And that's why it is important to understand what they're going through is not necessarily reflective of their capability to do well.
Okay. Now, we were having a chat before we came on, and we talked briefly about the hallway conversation. Tell us about the hallway conversation and why that isn't happening in the classroom, for example.
Hallway conversation, or even the digital world, like their gaming worlds and social media, they are not negotiating, reading faces, or testing their sense of humor, or recovering from an awkward moment, deciding when to lead or when to follow. This doesn't happen in a standard structured classroom. Every human skill we spend hours trying to teach is just happening naturally in hallways, not in a structured classroom. And in a structured classroom, a teacher or sometimes even a student probably is just presenting on that particular topic. It is not a test bed for experimenting your leading skills or speaking skills or humor skills or anything for that matter.
Okay. Now, I guess that you've, because of your work, I know you're incredibly successful. You've met these young people. They're very nervous, anxious, not really, terribly interactive. But I'm sure you've seen signs or situations where you look at that person initially and think, oh gosh, there's a lot of work to do there. But then sometimes a miracle happens and whoa, you say the right word or you find the right conversation for them and suddenly they just take off.
Yes. In fact, it has happened many times in my experience over the last decade. But I did want to bring up this one beautiful young lady, young teen actually. She's a lady, probably not. She is an adult, but she went through a lot of bullying in her, I would say, in middle school, and despite being really good in academics, she just didn't want to talk anymore in school, in house, anywhere for that matter, even in our sessions. And I did try to help her because I have had, I wouldn't say that severity of bullying, but as kids, you get in situations where it's not comfortable for you. I tried to relate, but then, what I felt was that I was not as effective. So because my entire team is actually youth, which is basically high schoolers and undergrads, they know exactly the words to use. They have had similar experiences. So I was able to bring in a relatable peer mentor, and I asked them to help me with this one particular student. They discussed how they felt the pain and what fears that we have developed because of that. But at the end of I think it took 2 years, but again, a beautiful transformation happened. She not only wrote her entire story, she was willing to share it in a video, about her experience to the world. And then at that point, I asked her, why would you want to do that? Don't you think people will judge you? She said, no, it's okay. I'm fine. But I really want to help other kids who were probably in my shoes. And I don't want them to take so many years to find their courage and be okay. So that was a great transformation. And in fact, I would say a lot of kids who come and work with us, they go out, they walk away with a completely different mindset. It's not about them being able to make it in their next class presentation, but it's about, even if they didn't make it, they're going to try again in a different setting and they'll learn from it. They were not afraid to fail anymore. And that was the biggest outcome, I guess, the most important outcome we can create for our generation.
Yeah, I think when I was a young man, I failed lots, and once you get sick of failing, you really start focusing and concentrating very hard, and what you find a formula that works for you and that is authentically you, and yeah, life's a lot easier when you feel that you can be yourself and not have to worry all the time about what other people think and whether they're judging you. I mean, I used to
So
yeah, I used to have terrible difficulties with that as a young man. But once you get over that, and once you just sort of say, well, yeah, I'm going to be me, whatever I do, and if they like it, great. If they don't like it, there we go. You're not going to please everybody anyway, so you might as well just get up there and be the best that you can be, and hope that people will warm to you, I guess.
true.
Okay, so what about AI? AI is changing the entry-level job market faster than, well, any generation has experienced. What does that mean for teenagers that you work with right now?
The good and bad part. The good part is the skills, these human skills, um, they are important in any era, actually. So it doesn't matter whether it's AI or some other technology or a new or any event that happens in your personal or professional life. Having these human skills, being good at these, will give you the exact confidence, courage, and strategy, if you may say, to deal with that situation. So that's the good part. So human skills have really, they stand on their own. They're the foundational skills for anything, for any success, any satisfaction and purpose or passion that you have in your life. AI is definitely now causing the bad part is AI is definitely now causing a lot of confusion in youth. In fact, my kids are like, why am I doing this if ChatGPT is doing everything? It's smarter than me, mommy. So they are feeling scared. That's like, what do I have now to give to the world? And I always tell them that what you have is so special, is so important, and it's important to work on it, that nobody can replace another human or AI. So, start from there, because your confidence in like a math or a science or even just, public speaking can go back and forth. I mean, you can have it sometimes in your certain phases of life, and you may not have it depending upon where you are. But the ability to, that resilience, the ability to jump back and say, you know what, fine, I just didn't do it, but I'm going to try again. I have my friends and they're going to help me out through this. And I know the tricks of self-management when my emotions are all over the place, because they learned that in emotional intelligence, part of the human skill. Or, I'm a leader and I need to do this anyway for my team, leadership skills, right? All these things will still be their biggest assets in AI. In fact, to make it purely technical, you want the best out of AI, you need to know how to communicate with AI. You need to know how to lead that chat that you're having with AI. And you need to make sure that AI is sensitive, basically understands the nuances of human beings and their audience and culture, traditions, and whatnot, or whatever that topic is. So even if you end up in a job where AI is, a must and is heavily used, your ability to connect, lead, and communicate is going to be your superpower.
Yep. I think the big AI issue is asking the right question or the right stream of
Exactly.
questions. Because
Exactly.
so, for example, the young man I was working with today, we were talking about the order of precedence in a mathematical equation as a programmer. So there's a thing called BODMAS. So you have to
Yes.
do work
Yes.
from, if you've seen it, you work from left to right, and you got to go through the sequence in the right order. Otherwise, you end up with the wrong numbers. And
Yes.
if you don't know about BODMAS, you wouldn't know what questions to ask. So I think that's a big issue. There's still lots and lots of things that we human beings can do, and of course, it's humans who've programmed and created the algorithm and the learning mechanism, as it were. So I think these things are only ever as good as what humans make them.
True. I agree.
Okay, right now. We're almost coming to the end, very sadly. So, what do you want every trainer listening to this to do differently the next time they work in a session with a young person?
I think the biggest thing we can do is before we start any session with a young person, we ask them to share or say something they already know how to or really good at, because it kind of calibrates their mental room, and the physical room, where they feel good, confident, positive, that they matter. They're, what they have to say is actually important, and people are ready to listen. And it doesn't matter how old or experienced or successful they are. So I would say that let them start first from a place of where they are comfortable with, confident about, and have had are successful at.
Okay. And so you've been working with youth for many, many years. What's the one human skill that consistently separates teenagers who thrive from those who struggle, and how do they actually build that?
The surprising answer to that is friendships. It's our job as adults to enable our kids are building friendships naturally, organically, and consistently. So we have to encourage them and create that space for them, whether it is in school, in home, in communities, in especially in the digital world, where they can build friendships and find people that help each other so their friendships can thrive. This is because when your relationships are good, you feel good. You feel good, you're more likely to do good in life. So I would say friendship, actually, if you think about it, even adults thrive well when they have great friendships or their relationships with their families are great. Because at the end of the day, Vince, when you need a hug, you need a family member or a friend. Nothing else in this world can help you.
Yeah, those people on the street, when you ask them, they can be a bit funny. So I take your point. Now, one last bonus question,
Sure,
if you don't mind.
sure,
My this is a
sure,
personal question.
sure.
You've been at Stanford for some time now. How's it going, and what's the experience there?
It has been the best thing that could have happened at the best time. I was thinking of how I can do better as an entrepreneur with the product I have built, which is completely built by youth, but thanks to my mentors like you. And it has forced me to think very differently and challenge my fundamental assumptions of how kids learn. where they learn the most, and then give me and equip me with tools and strategies to continuously learn and change and pivot in order to the ever change, in order to deal with the ever changing environment. Because when you are working with people, people are continuously changing. Our technology is continuously changing. You can no longer go with one thing or even a set of tools that worked for you when you were young. Even if they made you successful, that doesn't mean that is you can, it will continue to make you successful. So it has been blessing, honestly, as much as I feel pressured sometimes or stressed because I have homeworks now to turn in and whatnot. The network, the professors, the mentors, the course facilitators, just your peers, everybody is coming in with a very unique and same mindset. Let's do the best and let's learn how to continue to do our best. So and here's the crazy part is, even though I'm learning how to improvise on my business and whatnot, human skills are a part of everything that we are doing, whether it's critical thinking course or how do we do the business model for our companies, and how do you design your business. Everything has a human skills component. That's I would encourage everybody to continuously learn and improvise and get better at your human skills, because it's AI, something else doesn't matter. It will help you in the long run.
Okay, one last bonus question.
Sure.
So I interviewed a doctor a few weeks ago. He's a medical doctor,
Mhm.
and he runs core. He's got his core work, in a hospital, kind of works 60 hours a week. When he's not doing that, he's running courses elsewhere, and he runs what should we call them, retreats as well for other doctors. And I'm just wondering where this gentleman gets time to actually spend some time with his family. How about you? It must be very challenging with four teenage children,
It's just,
and the business and all of your studies to try and
yes.
keep all of those balls in the air, as it were.
It is true. It's very hard, but you have to involve your family in your work in certain ways. So, in fact, I was at the Stanford campus for workshops, and I took my children with that there with me. And I actually had one of them even attend one of the pitching sessions, just watch them. And there's always constant learning. And when you feel that your family is supportive of what you're doing, um, you have this extra energy. It comes from somewhere, and you feel satisfied, and you feel like you're all on one team, even though you may have slightly different, professional goals. So, yes, it's hard, but I try to make every attempt and grab every opportunity I can to mix work and family and create my balance in that way.
Okay. Okay, Sarah, thank you very much for being with me today. If you could just hold on for 2 minutes
Sure.
whilst I wrap this up. I just want to thank you for your time. I'm
Thank
surprised you've got time, but thank you very much for being with me today.
you.
And
Sure.
I'm going to have a little bit of a 2 week break, I think, because I've been
It is.
working very, very hard, very long hours, and I'm looking forward to a little bit of a hiatus myself. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Vince. Take care. Have fun.
Okay. Cheers. Ciao.